Dobrý den, vítejte u dalšího videa. Hello and welcome to my new video. In this video I'm going to use this big board for a very important topic. We're going to learn some sentences, some constructions that you can hear in informal language. So this video will help you understand how the native speakers express themselves informally. We are going to talk about these two words specifically. We are going to focus our attention on co, which can mean what, of course, but it can also mean that. And in informal Czech, we use this a lot instead of který or která, které. For example, you can say, to je ten pán, co tady byl. This is the man that was here. Instead of saying, to je ten pán, který tu byl, which is also correct, but this would be in formal Czech. And if you use co, that would be more informal. So který means who or what or which. And in Czech we can replace který, která, které by co in many cases, but not always. So today we're going to see when is it that we can replace it and when we cannot. Jdeme na to. Ahoj, vítejte na mém kanále Czech by Zuzka, kde vám pomocí angličtiny vysvětluju českou gramatiku. Let's look at these three sentences. They all contain the relative pronoun který, která, které. Znám jednoho člověka, který tam pracuje. I know a person who works there. Který tam pracuje. This is the relative pronoun který. By the way, in the past I made a video focused on this relative pronoun který and how it works. So if you're wondering how exactly we put these two clauses together, then you can watch this video and you will understand the mystery behind it. Today you're going to understand why we can also say co, and this is something that you will hear in the informal Czech very often. Znám jednoho člověka, co tam pracuje. Here, který means who. So we would translate it as who in English. And co would be translated as that in English, which is informal. We know that in written English, this is not the best option, just like co. If it's something formal, then you have to be careful with using this. But for spoken Czech or an informal context, when you're texting, this is totally fine and it's very natural. Znám jednoho člověka, co tam pracuje. Now let's see another sentence. Znám jednu ženu, která tam pracuje. A very similar one, except here we have ženu, která tam pracuje. So we're talking about a woman. I know a woman who works there. So as you can see, I also used red color to show a different gender. Ženu, která, so this refers to the woman. I know a woman who works there. And in informal Czech, you can say, znám jednu ženu, co tam pracuje. Very easy. Znám jednu ženu, co tam pracuje. I know a woman that works there. Now, the green sentence contains the neuter gender. Koupil si auto, které se po týdnu rozbilo. He bought a car that broke down after a week. By the way, rozbilo is not like the most proper verb to use for a car. We would say porouchalo, but I wanted to simplify it. People say this all the time, that their car broke, rozbilo se. But we're talking about the informal Czech, where many things are acceptable. Takže, koupil si auto, které se po týdnu rozbilo. Koupil si auto, co se po týdnu rozbilo. Yes, very easy. He bought a car which broke after a week. He bought a car that broke after a week. We see masculine animate, feminine, and neuter gender. Do you know which case are these? All these three forms are in the nominative case. So we know that we can replace který by co when it's in the nominative case. It doesn't matter the gender. It doesn't matter the number actually. Even if we had plural, znám dva lidi, kteří tam pracují. I know two people who work there. Nebo znám dva lidi, co tam pracují. I know two people that work there. So that would be the same case. So we can do this transition který to co when it's nominative, singular and plural. But that's not all. Let's see another example. So here are some examples in the accusative form. To je ta knížka, kterou jsem si koupila v Praze. This is the book which I bought in Prague. Now I will tell you, you can also replace kterou by co. To je ta knížka, co jsem si koupila v Praze. This is the book that I bought in Prague. This is informal, very typical for spoken Czech. Even in plural form, našla jsem boty, které jsem si koupila loni. I found the shoes which I bought last year. Loni is an informal way of saying minulý rok. Instead of minulý rok, you can say one word loni, loni. Které refers to the shoes. I bought these shoes. This is the accusative case as well. And you can simply say, našla jsem boty, co jsem si koupila loni. I found the shoes that I bought last year. Informal. So let me write this again. We know that KTERY, I'm gonna just write kt because I don't want to deal with all the endings, can be replaced by co if it's nominative, like we said, singular and plural, and when it's accusative, singular and plural. So let's see this sentence. Je to knížka, na kterou často myslím. This is the book I often think about. There is something different here. We have kterou, like here, yes. It's also in the accusative case. But there is a preposition, which is a red flag for you. When there is a preposition, then we cannot say co, na co. Because when we say na co, when there is a preposition, it would refer to neuter gender. So it's not possible. This is not possible to be used here. So we can expand our rule. KTERY can be replaced by co in a nominative singular and plural or accusative singular and plural as long as there is no preposition involved. So no prepositions. No prepositions pro, s, anything. Once there is a preposition, this does not work. And there is one more thing. Znám člověka, kterého baví jazyky. I know a person who enjoys languages. Člověka baví jazyky. This is also in the accusative case. So all these sentences are in the accusative case. This one refers to the masculine animate. Kterého člověka, kterého. We cannot say co baví jazyky either. It doesn't work. Because if you said znám člověka, co baví jazyky, bavit can also mean to entertain. It would sound like you want to say, I know a person that entertains languages. Suddenly, this would make it sound like it's the nominative case, that the person entertains languages. This is not only about this specific verb. This is about kterého. Kterého. Kterého has this ending, specific ending for masculine animate that does not work. What we could do, and it's also possible in informal Czech, we can actually say, znám člověka, co ho baví jazyky. So we have to replace it by two words. Co for KTERY and then ho for this ending. So you are sure that it is in the accusative case. I will get back to this in a second, but let's expand our rule one more time. KTERY can be replaced by co in the accusative singular and plural, except for kterého, which is for masculine animate, right? So this does not apply. We cannot simply just say co. So remember this rule. KTERY can be replaced by co in nominative and accusative with no preposition, in singular and plural, no matter the gender, except masculine animate in the accusative, kterého, sometimes with some verbs, even the plural. Also remember that KTERY is used in question. So if we have an indirect question, for example, ukaž mi, který člověk to byl. Show me which person it was. Show me which one, in a way. Here we also cannot say ukaž mi, co člověk to byl, because this has a different function. Here KTERY is in indirect question, and it means which or which one. So we cannot replace it with co. Before we continue, I would like to mention one important thing. Remember that replacing the relative clause with KTERY and all its forms with co is always possible when it's in the nominative case, like in this example. To je ten pán, který tu byl. To je ten pán, co tu byl. Because který is in the nominative case. This is the man that was here. Pán tu byl. Pán is replaced by který here in the nominative case, and co worked just as well. But remember, is informal Czech. However, if the relative pronoun který is in the accusative case, replacing it by co may not always be possible. For example, Jitka je žena, kterou zajímá fyzika. Jitka is a woman who's interested in physics. In Czech we have this construction. Jitku zajímá fyzika. We literally say that physics interests Jitka. So this is the accusative case. We cannot simply say co here because it could be misunderstood. It would sound like a physicist, which is physic in Czech, is interested in Jitka. The same is here for masculine, animate and plural. Honza a Jitka jsou lidi, které zajímají jazyky. It could be misunderstood. So co simply does not work here. So before I simplify the rule and mention that it's not possible for kterého, masculine animate in singular form, but there may be other combinations, especially when it involves people. And it all depends on what other parts of speech there are in the sentence. It gets quite complicated and I probably would not be able to explain to you well because it's very informal Czech. We could even say non-standard or colloquial Czech, which usually doesn't have written rules. But the goal of my video is rather to understand that this happens in informal Czech, and I want you to be ready to decode a sentence when you hear co in it. But remember that if you have a relative clause in the nominative case, like here, replacing it with co is always safe in all the genders and both singular and plural forms. Now I want you to take a look at this table, the same table that I used in that video I recorded a few years ago on KTERY, just for you to get a quick idea when you can replace KTERY by co. I highlighted those forms that are safe. Let's start with the nominative case. To je ten pán, který tu byl. That's the man who was here. So you can use it for masculine animate. We're looking at the nominative case now. We can say to je ten pán, co tu byl. You can do also masculine inanimate. To je ten dům, co tu byl. That's the house that was here. Feminine as well. To je ta žena, co tu byla. Or neuter, to je to auto, co tu bylo. And now the plural. To jsou ti lidé, co tu byli. To jsou ty domy, co tu byly. To jsou ty ženy, co tu byly. A to jsou ta auta, co tu byla. If you're wondering why I'm using tu is the same as tady, except it's a little bit more formal. Sometimes we use it in informal speech just because it's short. Now let's take a look at the accusative case. We said kterého is out of the question. Moving on to masculine inanimate. To je ten dům, který jsem viděl. That would be in the accusative case. To je ten dům, co jsem viděl. That's fine. To je to auto, co jsem viděla. And now the plural. To jsou ty domy, co jsem viděla. A to jsou ta auta, co jsem viděla. Now let's see those more complex sentences where co is not enough. You can clearly see that these sentences are different because they have this special ending. It's not only kter and then one letter or one diphthong like kterou. There is something at the end like kterého, kterému, kterého, kterým. And this is what makes them different and why co is not enough. This is the genitive case. I apologize, I am not following my color coding for cases because I don't have enough colors. Instead, I'm using the colors that refer to that specific gender. So the blue one is for masculine, animate or inanimate, and this green one is for neuter. So the genitive case. Soused má psa, kterého se bojí celá ulice. The neighbor has a dog that the whole street is afraid of. But se in Czech needs the genitive case. And it doesn't take the preposition. In English there is a preposition, but in Czech there isn't. Psa se bojí celá ulice. Soused má psa, kterého se bojí celá ulice. If we make it sound more informal, actually very, very informal, it would be soused má psa, co se ho. So here it gets a little bit more complicated because we have se here, second position. And then we have to replace ho here. We have to reflect that in that form as well. But that also competes for the second position. If you have no idea what I'm talking about the second position thing, there is a video for it. Simply these tiny words cannot be put in a random place. They have to be in the front and they also have a special hierarchy. Soused má psát, co se ho bojí celá ulice. This se is here to complete the verb because it's bát se. And then co ho replaces kterého. Soused má psát, co se ho bojí celá ulice. That's very informal, but people say that as well. Now the dative case, talking about the car, so we have another gender. Jelo tady auto, kterému chyběly dveře. A car drove by here that was missing a door. Kterému chyběly, so this is the dative case. Kterému refers to the car. And we could say, jelo tady auto, co mu chyběly dveře. Jelo tady auto, co mu chyběly dveře. Very informal, but you can hear that too. Znám člověka, kterého baví jazyky. We already heard that. That's the accusative case. I know a person who enjoys languages. Baví ho jazyky. So we replace it by co and ho. Znám člověka, co ho baví jazyky. And locative is not here. Why is it not here? Because locative is always connected with a preposition. It does not exist without a preposition. And what did we say about the preposition? When there is a preposition, there is no co. So instrumental is the last one. To je ten vlak, kterým jsem jezdil do práce. Jezdil jsem vlakem do práce. Takže to je ten vlak, kterým... What are we gonna do here? How are we gonna do this? To je ten vlak. Co? Okay, something else. I'm gonna tell you, kterým will be replaced by co jím, but that's not enough because jím is personal pronoun that would want to be in a specific place, and we also have to put sem here, which is auxiliary verb, has to be in the second position here. To je ten vlak, co jsem jím jezdil do práce. Sounds very strange, but people can say that as well in informal Czech. One more thing, remember that co also means what, and it can be in a clause. For example, you could say souhlasím s tím, co říkáš. That's a different story. This has a different function here. Co actually means what, and it's another clause. I agree with what you're saying. So it was not replacing KTERY. You can see co doesn't refer to any noun in this sentence. KTERY, when it's in the relative clause, has to refer to a noun in the previous sentence, and also there is no noun. Now it's time for an exercise. We're going to do it a little bit differently. There will be 2 exercises. The first one will be for an easier level. We're gonna take it easy first. There are 4 sentences here. You have to decide if you can replace KTERY or KTERA, all these forms, by co. So replace KTERY by co if it's possible. Pause the video. Jdeme na to. Číslo 1. To je ta písnička, která se mi líbí. To je ta písnička, co se mi líbí. Here it's possible. Číslo 2. Přišel mi e-mail, ve kterém nic nebylo. Ve is a preposition, so we cannot say ve co. Not possible. Číslo 3. Každý má nějaké zážitky, které ho ovlivnily. Každý má nějaké zážitky, co ho ovlivnily. No problem. To je člověk, kterému rozumím. To je člověk, co mu rozumím. We would have to say, co mu rozumím in a very informal Czech. Now, second exercise, which is going to be a little bit more complicated. Your task is to first complete it with the right form of KTERY and then replace it by co. And remember that once you use co, it's very informal. Pause the video. Let's check it. Číslo 1. To je svetr, který jsem dostala k narozeninám. This is the accusative case for the masculine inanimate. And we can replace it by co, of course. To je ten svetr, co jsem dostala k narozeninám. Číslo 2. Jak se jmenuje ta písnička, kterou jsi zpívala? Kterou, this is the accusative. Or we could say, to je ta písnička, co jsi zpívala. Číslo 3. Jak se jmenuje ta aplikace, kterou používáš? The same form like the previous one. Jak se jmenuje ta aplikace, co používáš? Číslo 4. Nesnáším tyhle lidi, kteří si pořád stěžujou. kteří, because it's plural and the nominative. Or we could say, nesnáším tyhle lidi, co si pořád stěžujou. Tak, a to je ode mě všechno. This was a lot of information, I understand. Feel free to watch the video I mentioned before about KTERY. And if this was overwhelming for you, just take a look at the beginning of the video where I introduced those 3 sentences. Read both forms with KTERY and co and memorize them. That's all. You don't have to think about it. Get your brain accustomed to this sound, because next time you hear it, you might understand why they used co. And you might remember that co in that case doesn't mean what. And even if you forgot everything I just told you, I want you to remember one thing, that co in Czech doesn't always mean what. It can also mean that in informal Czech, when you have 2 clauses, when it's preceded by čárka. That's all. To je ode mě všechno. Mějte se hezky a uvidíme se zase za týden. Čau.